we're not taking this case trying to win it on a technicality. We're obviously still getting up to speed on the case, but we anticipate.
The alarm went off in the darkest corners of hip-hop history last night. And this time, it wasn't just another rumor. We've learned that the FBI is now working with a man who shared a cell with Sean Diddy Combs, a former associate who claims that behind prison walls, the music mogul made a confession so explosive it could rewrite the story of Shakur's tragic end. According to insiders, this cellmate, recently released, told investigators that Diddy, in a moment of vulnerability, admitted to playing a direct role in the events that led to Shakur's fate. The motive? Business. Control. A rising star who was becoming too powerful, too independent, threatening to break free from the industry's grip. And now, sources say the FBI is preparing to name Diddy as the primary figure of interest in a case that has haunted hip-hop for nearly 3 decades. If this holds, we're not just talking about another scandal. We're talking about a life sentence hanging over one of the most influential men in music.
The man put a lot of out there himself. So whether it's true or it's a lie, he got to answer for that. And whatever his explanation is, we're going to see. But he said
this isn't some baseless whisper from the internet's shadows. We're hearing this from individuals with direct knowledge of the investigation, people who've seen the shifts in the FBI's focus firsthand. The timing is impossible to ignore. Diddy is already behind bars, serving a 50-month term after his July 2025 conviction on serious charges. His empire is crumbling, his reputation in tatters, his once untouchable aura faded into courtroom sketches that made him look, as 50 Cent put it, like a man who aged overnight. But this isn't just about his past actions catching up with him. This is about a confession, alleged but corroborated by patterns, that ties him to one of the most infamous unsolved cases in American history. And if the FBI moves forward, we're looking at a scenario where Diddy doesn't just lose his freedom for what he's already been convicted of. He loses it for what he may have orchestrated in the darkest chapters of the 90s. Let's be clear about what this means. Shakur wasn't just a rapper. He was a cultural titan, a voice that defined a generation, a man whose influence still echoes in every corner of the industry today. His tragic end in 1996 didn't just leave a void, it left a mystery, one that has fueled endless theories, documentaries, and even legal battles. And now, the piece that might finally make sense of it all comes from the one place Diddy couldn't control: a prison cell. The Cellmate's account, as we understand it, isn't just a loose claim. It's a detailed admission, one that aligns with other fragments we've heard over the years. Fragments about power struggles, about Shakur's plans to launch his own label, about the fear that his independence would dismantle the carefully constructed power dynamics of the time. This wasn't just personal. According to the Cellmate, it was strategic, a move to eliminate a threat before it could reshape the industry.
Humans are not just good and bad, black and white. They're compassionate at times. They're at times. A man can be and compassionate to women at the same time. I was. Look at the lunatic and look at Brenda's got a baby.
But here's where it gets even more unsettling. This revelation doesn't exist in a vacuum. It lands at the exact moment when Diddy's world is already unraveling. We've seen the courtroom footage, the leaked tapes, the damning testimonies from his docuseries, Sean Combs' The Reckoning, which dropped on Netflix just last month. That project, executive produced by none other than 50 Cent, a man who spent years publicly feuding with Diddy, didn't just rehash old allegations. It presented new footage, new voices, new layers to the story of Diddy's rise and fall. And now, with this FBI development, the timing feels almost prophetic. Was 50 Cent sitting on more than just a grudge? Did he know something the rest of us didn't? Because the way this is unfolding, it's starting to look like the documentary wasn't just a hit piece. It was a warning.
I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak-off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their...
Let's talk about that documentary for a second, because it's impossible to separate this bombshell from the context it's dropped into. The Reckoning didn't just focus on Diddy's legal troubles or his controversial personal life. It dug deep into his connections to the passing of both Shakur and Biggie Smalls, two of the most pivotal figures in hip-hop history. The series included interviews with former Bad Boy associates, with people who claimed Diddy's ambition wasn't just ruthless, it was dangerous. Kirk Burroughs, a co-founder of Bad Boy, didn't mince words. I think that Sean had a lot to do with the passing of Shakur. He ushered Biggie to his passing. That's a direct quote, one that now takes on a whole new weight in light of what the FBI's Cellmate is saying. And then there's the footage Diddy tried to suppress. Footage that showed him in the days before his arrest, strategizing with his legal team, talking about hiring someone who has dealt in the dirtiest of dirty business. At the time, it seemed like desperate moves from a man facing prison. Now, it looks like the behavior of someone who's spent decades covering his tracks.
I realized Big was that type of rapper that he could get at somebody, and I think Puff was trying to tell him, don't go that route. You understand what I'm saying? But still putting out songs like Who Shot Ya in the intro, but telling Big not to go at nobody, which was crazy.
And let's not forget the other voices in that documentary. The former associates, the artists, the people who were there when the East Coast-West Coast rivalry wasn't just about music. It was about survival. They painted a picture of Diddy as a man who didn't just ride the waves of that era. He stoked them. He fueled the fire. And when Shakur became a liability, when his plans to start his own label threatened to upend the balance of power, the theory goes that Diddy made a choice. The Cellmate's account suggests that choice wasn't just about competition. It was about elimination. Because in that world, at that time, control wasn't just power, it was everything. And Shakur, with his defiance, his vision, his refusal to play by the rules, was a direct threat to that control. Now, let's connect this to the bigger picture.
You know, it's the idea here is that the state has the burden of proving it beyond a reasonable doubt. We don't think that they can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Also, just to go back a second about what was seized, also what was mentioned was some memorabilia, posters of Tupac and things like that, which we don't really think has a lot of evidentiary value, but
the FBI doesn't just act on prison gossip. They act on patterns, on evidence, on corroboration. And in this case, the Cellmate's story isn't standing alone. It's fitting into a puzzle that's been coming together for years. There's the 2023 arrest of Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, the man charged in Shakur's passing, who's alleged to have ties to Diddy through intermediaries. There are the old rumors, the whispers from the streets, the claims that Diddy had put out a bounty. There's the fact that Shakur himself, before his demise, pointed fingers in interviews, saying he had proof of Diddy's involvement in the Quad Studios shooting that nearly took his life in 1994. And now, with this Cellmate's account, we're looking at a narrative that's no longer just theory. It's a narrative that's gaining traction in the one place that matters most, a federal investigation. But here's the question that's hanging over all of this. Why now? Diddy has been a figure of controversy for decades. The allegations, the lawsuits, the rumors, they've followed him like a shadow. But the FBI moving on this, right as he's already locked up, right as his empire is collapsing, right as the world is watching his downfall in real time, that's not a coincidence. That's timing with a purpose. And if we're reading between the lines, it suggests that the Cellmate's information isn't just credible, it's the missing piece, the one that turns decades of speculation into something actionable. Let's also talk about the irony here. Diddy built his career on the backs of two of the greatest rappers to ever live, Shakur and Biggie. He produced their music, he shaped their images, he profited from their legacies. And now, the same man who stood at their funerals, who released tribute songs, who positioned himself as a grieving friend, is being tied to their passing in the most damning way possible.
I lost my freedom behind Tupac. I lost business. I lost house, the whole lot of shit.
If the FBI's case holds, we're not just looking at a fall from grace, we're looking at a rewriting of history. Because this isn't just about Diddy, it's about Shakur, it's about Biggie, it's about the era that defined hip-hop, an era that was supposed to be about art and rivalry and cultural revolution, but may have been manipulated by something far darker. And then there's the other layer to this, the legal strategy. Diddy's team has already tried to discredit The Reckoning, calling it a shameful hit piece, claiming the footage was stolen, insisting that it's all part of a smear campaign led by 50 Cent. But here's the thing, 50 Cent didn't just drop a documentary for the sake of drama. He dropped it with timing that now looks almost prescient. The series premiered in December 2025, just as Diddy was settling into his prison sentence. And now, weeks later, we're hearing about the FBI's Cellmate connection. Is that a coincidence? Or is there a reason why 50 Cent, a man who spent years trolling Diddy, suddenly had access to footage and testimonies that aligned so perfectly with what the FBI is now pursuing? Because if this is all connected, if 50 Cent had sources inside the investigation, if he knew this was coming, then The Reckoning wasn't just a documentary. It was a setup, a public priming for the bombshell that's about to drop.
Now, I ain't trying to say that's some kind of conspiracy, and maybe some other was going on, or this, that, and the third. But brother, he had that conversation with K. Slade 2 weeks before he was murdered.
We also can't ignore the state Diddy's in right now. The man who once ruled the industry is now a shadow of himself. The courtroom sketches showed a man who'd aged decades and months, his once impeccable image reduced to a gray, hollowed-out figure. His legal battles have drained him financially, his reputation is in tatters, and his attempts to control the narrative, like his failed lawsuit against Netflix, have only made him look more desperate. And now, with this FBI development, he's not just fighting for his freedom, he's fighting for his legacy. Because if this Cellmate's account is proven, if the FBI moves forward with naming him as the primary figure in Shakur's case, Diddy won't just be remembered as a music mogul who fell from grace. He'll be remembered as the man who orchestrated the demise of a legend. And in hip-hop, that's not just a crime, that's an unforgivable sin. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. The FBI hasn't made its move yet. The Cellmate's account is still just that, an account. but it's an account that's gaining traction, that's being treated as credible, that's being woven into an investigation that's been ongoing for decades. And if we've learned anything from the past few years, it's that Diddy's world is built on secrets. Secrets about his business, secrets about his personal life, secrets about the lengths he'd go to maintain control. And now, the biggest secret of all might be on the verge of coming out. There's one more thing we have to consider here, and it's the most chilling part of all. If Diddy did what he's being accused of, if he really did play a role in Shakur's demise, then this isn't just about one man's crimes. It's about an industry that allowed it to happen. It's about the people who looked the other way, who stayed silent, who benefited from the chaos while the truth stayed buried. Because let's be real, Diddy didn't operate in a vacuum. He had allies. He had enablers. He had people who knew, who suspected, who maybe even helped.
He's 3 law firms on retainer. I don't know how much money is coming in, but I know that a lot of money is going out every single month for Diddy.
And if this all comes out, if the FBI's case holds, then the question isn't just what Diddy did, it's who else knew, and who's still out there, watching, waiting, hoping this never sees the light of day. We're standing at the edge of something massive here. The FBI's next move could change everything. It could confirm what so many have suspected for years. It could finally bring a measure of justice to a case that's been open for nearly 3 decades. Or it could collapse under the weight of its own speculation, leaving us with more questions than answers. But one thing is certain, Diddy's world is about to get a whole lot darker. And the rest of us? We're about to find out just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Because if there's one thing we've learned from the past few years of scandals, of leaked footage, of courtroom dramas and prison sentences, it's that the truth about Diddy has always been hiding in plain sight. We just didn't have the right piece to make it all click. And now, with this Cellmate's account, with the FBI's interest, with the timing that feels almost too perfect to be coincidence, we might finally have it. The missing link. The confession that changes everything. And if that's the case, then the story we've been telling for decades, the story of Shakur's demise, of Biggie's assassination, of the era that defined hip-hop, was never what we thought it was. It was something darker, something controlled, something orchestrated from the shadows by a man who thought he was untouchable. But no one is untouchable forever, and Diddy's time might finally be up.
He said it was, according to him, he said it was security that accepted money, participated in it, and it was so-called homies.
And if we thought the prison confession was the most damning piece of this puzzle, we haven't been paying attention to the way Diddy's empire has fought to keep its secrets buried. Because this isn't just about a cellmate's word against a mogul's silence. It's about the years of legal threats, the vanished footage, the people who've mysteriously gone quiet when the questions got too close. Remember that Netflix documentary, Sean Combs' The Reckoning? The one Diddy's team called a shameful hit piece? The one they tried to shut down with cease and desist letters claiming the footage was stolen? Well, here's the thing. If that footage was so damaging, if it really did show Diddy in those unguarded moments before his arrest, strategizing with his legal team, talking about hiring someone who has dealt in the dirtiest of dirty business, then maybe the fight wasn't just about reputation. Maybe it was about evidence. Maybe it was about the one thing Diddy has always feared most, losing control of the narrative. Let's talk about that footage for a second, because it's not just some random clip. It was shot by Michael Oberlees, Diddy's longtime personal videographer, the man who was supposed to be documenting Diddy's life for a project that never saw the light of day. Oberlees claimed the footage was leaked by a third party, someone who covered for him while he was out of state. But here's the question. If this was just a random leak, why did Diddy's team react like it was a national security breach? Why did they send cease and desist letters to Netflix, accusing them of using stolen material? And why, when Netflix stood their ground, did Diddy's legal team go eerily silent? Because if we're connecting the dots, that footage wasn't just embarrassing, it was incriminating. And in the hands of someone like 50 Cent, who spent years publicly feuding with Diddy, it wasn't just a weapon, it was a blueprint. But here's where it gets even more twisted. That documentary didn't just rely on leaked footage. It relied on voices, people who'd been silent for years, who suddenly found the courage to speak.
Hey, that boy life is dangerous. And his life isn't, and he just not dangerous with they said he was doing, but he's in danger. He knows too much.
People like Kirk Burrows, Diddy's former business partner, who didn't just accuse Diddy of financial misconduct or personal betrayals. He accused him of something far darker, of playing a role in the tragedies that defined an era. And then there's Rodney Lil Rod Jones, the producer who worked on Diddy's final album before his arrest. Jones didn't just talk about unpaid wages or creative differences. He talked about private encounters, about pressure, about a side of Diddy that the public never saw. And if we're being honest, that's the side the FBI might be most interested in now. Because let's not forget, Diddy's legal battles didn't start with the prison confession. They started long before that, with lawsuits, with settlements, with a pattern of behavior that suggested he wasn't just fighting for his freedom. He was fighting to keep certain truths from ever seeing the light of day. Remember the Cassie Ventura case? The one where Diddy was accused of coercive behavior, of using his power to manipulate and control? That case didn't just end with a settlement. It ended with a non-disclosure agreement, with a silence so loud it spoke volumes. And now, with the FBI digging deeper, with the Cellmate's account adding weight to the theories that have swirled for years, we have to ask, what else is buried under those NDAs? What other voices have been silenced? And who's been pulling the strings to keep them that way?
As far as, is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he had to, he won't get out till 70 years old. He about 70. That's when they start talking about letting him come to a halfway house.
And then there's the other layer to this, the way Diddy's team has tried to manipulate the media, the way they've worked to shape the story, even as it spirals out of their control. We saw it during his trial when his PR team was caught whispering to bloggers and YouTubers in the courthouse lunchroom, feeding them talking points, trying to spin the narrative in real time. We saw it when they offered transcripts to influencers, highlighting the parts they wanted emphasized, the parts that made Diddy look like the victim. And we're seeing it now as the FBI's investigation heats up, as the Cellmate's account gains traction, because if there's one thing Diddy's empire has always been good at, it's controlling the story. But this time, the story might be too big to control. Let's not forget the bigger picture here. Diddy didn't just build a music empire, he built a machine, one that relied on loyalty, on fear, on the understanding that crossing him came with consequences. And now, as that machine crumbles, as the people who once protected him start to speak, as the footage he tried to bury resurfaces, we're seeing the cracks in the foundation. The FBI's interest in the Cellmate's account isn't just about Shakur, it's about a pattern. It's about the way power was wielded, the way secrets were kept, the way lives were allegedly manipulated and destroyed to maintain control. And if that pattern holds, if the FBI's case builds, then this isn't just about one man's crimes. It's about an industry that allowed it to happen. It's about the people who looked the other way, who stayed silent, who benefited from the chaos while the truth stayed buried. So tell us, do you think the FBI's case will hold? Or is this just another chapter in the never-ending saga of hip-hop's darkest secrets? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is one story we'll all be watching unfold. And trust us, you won't want to miss what happens next. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and as always, stay tuned. Because the truth, it's coming. And when it does, it's going to shake the foundations of everything we thought we knew. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your ears to the ground. This isn't over yet, not by a long shot.